welcome to today's session. Welcome to today's session on Prophet Solomon, or Suleiman as we call it in Urdu. In English, Solomon. Is called the interest. There's an interesting bit about some of the stories of Prophet Solomon because the other nations also believe in it. There are actually theses and other research that is being done. People study about the things that were at that time mentioned in the Quran and some of the other scriptures. So let's look into it, what the stories are, and what lessons to be learned from it. So before we start, we dedicate the session to the Lord of our time, our Imam Zamana. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad wa ajil faraj. So let's start. I've got a little bit of bad throat, so bear with me as we start. Okay, so I didn't had a chance to update the name of the chapter on it, so excuse that. So it's chapter 27, chapter 38. It's not Surah Yusuf. We got Surah Namal. We got chapter 38, verses 33, 35, 36, and chapter 21, verse 78. These are some of the places where the today's stories are narrated from. So this is their part where the story is written. Surah Namal is the story of the ant. But before we look into that, let's first look at what does the Quran say about Prophet Solomon alayhi salam. So the Holy Quran says, we gave knowledge to Dawood and Suleiman. They said, it's only Allah who deserves all praise. He has exalted us above many of his believing servants. Suleiman became the higher to Dawood, or Prophet David as we call it, and all the other people who follow other scriptures, such as the Christians and others, they call him Prophet David. He said, people, we have been taught the language of the birds and have been granted a share of everything. This indeed is the manifest favor from Allah. This is Surah Namal, which is chapter number 27, 15 to 16 is the verse. Now if we stop and read Quran as if I've just read it, we won't enjoy it. Now look at it, what the Quran is saying, that Prophet David was a king before Prophet Suleiman, and he became the king after him. But what is something interesting here? It says, he said, people, we have been taught the language of the birds, which means there is a language of the birds. So Quran is saying that the birds have a language to communicate. So does other animal have, but if we focus on this verse, we know that that language was taught, and Prophet Solomon or Suleiman or Solomon was able to communicate with the birds. And he was also granted a share in this kingdom where the jinns were there and other creatures, and they were made subservient, which means they were to serve Prophet Solomon when he commands them. So Allah gave this power to Prophet Solomon. There's also a story about his special ring. So this was the favor that Allah granted them. So remember, now we know from the Quran that the birds speak a language, and whoever Allah chooses, they can speak and communicate that language. So there should be no surprise when we hear stories of the Imam speaking, and I've done this in the 14 Masumin session as well. They're speaking with the animals and others. This is proven from the Quran that they have a language, and the people chosen by Allah can communicate with them. Excuse my throat. So let's move on. So Prophet Solomon. So so let's start from that verse, and we say, according to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the prophethood and the kingdom of Prophet David was passed on to Prophet Solomon. And also remember that he was the youngest son of Prophet David. So he was not the firstborn who inherited the kingdom and the prophethood. So he was the youngest. The kingdom of Prophet Solomon was greater than that of his father, which means it was bigger than what his father commanded, the territory and the things, and he had command over animals, birds, jinns, etc. So his kingdom was greater than that of his father, and the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him control over the wind. So he had another special power. He was given control over the wind in order that it could carry his throne through the air wherever he wanted. So wherever he wanted to go, he can command the wind and he was able to go. So he deputed the jinns and the men to serve him under his command, and birds were also made subservient to him, which means to listen to his commands. So that they could shelter him under the shade of their wings. So, as when he used to go with his entourage, he's traveling like a king, the birds used to come. If there was sun heat coming in, they used to come and provide shelter. Like we see migratory birds, they're going in a pattern, they form a shade just over Prophet Solomon. And Allah had taught the language, because he had taught the language of the birds, and he had endowed him with extraordinary power of perception and intelligence. What we know is that they had extraordinary power of perception and intelligence. And owing to these special endowments, the kingdom, these power, these blessings that was given to Prophet Suleiman, he assumed a unique position, and various other countries were under it, right? So we know that he had power over the wind, and his throne, he used to fly and go everywhere in that. So that now, and remember, the images that you see are not actually depicting what actually happened, but they're trying to give you an idea of what could it have looked like. So we're just imagining the throne. So the throne of Prophet Suleiman. Now some say it was a flying carpet that could move as fast in the air and reach any place. Some say it was a throne that used to fly. And but no one knows. Remember, no one knows the throne size and the shape. What shape it was, what size it was. So it's only for visualization purpose that I've created this image. But it could either be what it could be. It could either be just a plain piece of wood, and he sit on it, his companions sit on it, or a big large carpet, and they just all sit on it and it can fly. It could very well be a carpet, because Imam Ali alayhi salam also took some of the companions of Holy Prophet on a flying carpet. So we know from history there are stories about flying carpets. So this scene depicts a majestic throne carried by the wind, with soldiers there, ministers and attendants was present, everyone's present, and his throne is flying through it. So that's one part we know. The jinn served the Prophet Solomon. No way the jinns like this. I don't know. I do not know how they look like. But as an image, the jinns used to serve him like his personal slaves. So they were his slaves. They used to build for him. For who? For Prophet Solomon. They used to build for him huge buildings and reservoirs of water. So water was captured in, because remember, right now we have pipes coming in, the water comes into the tap. At that time, there was no water pipes running tap. So they used to build a reservoir where they used to gather the water. The other thing that they used to do was they used to bring precious pearls from underneath the sea. Yes, so the jinns used to go under the sea and they used to bring these special pearls. Now, jinn are made from fire. And remember, in the first story of Prophet Adam, I said they are made from a fire that does not have smoke. Now we also know that when it goes inside the water, it doesn't vanishes as well, right? So it doesn't extinguishes. So there's one more part of Prophet Solomon is the Valley of the Ants, which is Surah Namal. So we can read the Surah Namal, but what the Quran says, that Prophet Suleiman's army consisted of men, jinns, birds. They were all gathered together in his presence, and they were all moving in ranks. Um, when they arrived in a valley, and that valley is called the Valley of the Ants, where one ant at that time said to the other, "Go, go, go, enter your dwellings, lest you be crushed by Solomon and his army unawares." So this is the verse from Quran, which I just recited in English. chapter 27, verse number 17 to 18. What we know is the aunt is saying, go inside your houses. You'll be crushed by his army who will be unaware. So, when in a historical journey, Prophet Solomon passed by the valley of the ants with this army of men, jinns, birds, the chief ant, which is the leader of the ant, actually said this story. And it said this story, and I've got another picture to see. So, when that ant, look at the big ant, this is just showing as a leader ant, is saying the story, the chief ant said to its fellow ants, or it says of the impending danger, and said in a loud and clear voice, go inside your burrows so that you may not be crushed under the feet of Prophet Solomon's army. Solomon's army, Solomon's army. The wind carried the sound waves. Now, remember, Prophet Solomon had control over the wind. So, and we know that wind the sound waves are present in it, right? So it carried those sound waves of that chief's aunt's voice saying this to Prophet Solomon. When he heard it, he said, So he summoned the aunt to come before him. And he said, when it came in the presence of Prophet Solomon, he said, don't you know that I am the prophet of Allah, and that it is unconceivable to believe that the prophet of Allah could ever harm any creature of Allah? What is he saying? He's saying, I am the prophet. I'm Prophet Solomon. I'm the prophet of Allah. How can you even think that a prophet of Allah would ever harm any creation of Allah? So the aunt said, what did the aunt say? I don't know. No, it said, yes, I know it's to Prophet Solomon. It said, yes, I know it, O Prophet. How did you then? So Prophet Solomon said, how did you know such a thing? And why did you frighten your fellow aunts for nothing? So basically what he's saying is, then why did you say such a thing? You made your all of your fellow aunts frightened for nothing. And then what did the aunt say? The aunt replied back. So the aunt said, I thought if my fellow beings would see the extraordinary grandeur and unique kingdom, they would underestimate the bounties of Allah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, what a beautiful message we have here. What is the aunt saying? That I thought that if they will look at all of this, you are coming with such big entourage of people, the grandeur nature, and we live a simple life, we will that. And the aunt is estimating, it's not necessarily the other aunts were doing, saying that I would estimate that my fellow aunts will see this all this unique extraordinary grandeur in the kingdom, and they would underestimate the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that they have, and treat them with contempt, and ultimately they would have become ungrateful to Allah. So what did they said? They will become ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why she said it. Okay. So thus I wanted to save them from this possible danger and risk, said the aunt. So when Prophet Solomon heard its thought-provoking answer, he kept quiet. He was quiet, he didn't say anything. Then the chief aunt, which is the leader of the ant, it says, O Prophet Solomon, do you know how and why your throne floats in the air? And why from all of your favors Allah has made the wind subservient to you to carry away your floating throne? Now it's asking, do you even know that why your throne floats in the air? And why from all of the favors that Allah has given you, the kingdom, speaking with the birds, the jinns being subservient, that the wind is also under your command and it carries away your floating throne? Prophet Solomon said, I do not know that. The aunt said, because Allah wants to remind you that all this grandeur of kingdom and the floating throne are not permanent things, as they are dependent upon the power of the wind only. So whatever you're doing, it's all dependent on the power of the wind. And who created the wind? And who controls the wind ultimately? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the story in Surah Namal, which is chapter number 27. Let's look at some other story. Yeah. Okay. So if I can come and change the screen. So the other one is Prophet Suleiman or Solomon and Queen Bilqis. The Queen of Saba, she was also known as the Kingdom of Saba. So the Quran says Solomon, which is Prophet Solomon, inspected the birds and said, how is it that I cannot see Hoopoe? Is he absent? I shall certainly punish him severely or slaughter him unless he has a good reasons for his absence. This is Surah Namal, and that story is in there as well. So why I'm reading this verse? So one day Prophet Solomon noticed that a bird hoopoe, which we also call in Urdu as hudhud, was absent, and the sun rays were falling on his face. So all the birds used to cover. So the position that this bird was in, it moved off, and the sun ray came and it was hitting. And as soon as it hit, he was able to notice that hoopoe was missing. By his sudden and uncalled for absence, Prophet Suleiman became extremely annoyed because the bird did not told him in advance that I won't be present, I'm going somewhere, and said if it did not offer any reasonable excuse for his absence, I will punish him severely, or I will even slaughter him straight away. That he needs to give me a reason why is he not on his duty. So it was not long before the hoopoe or hudhud appeared, the bird appeared suddenly and explained the reasons of his absence, saying, I have been to a country about which I think you do not know anything. So the bird is saying to the Prophet Solomon that I've been to a country that I think, or she's thinking, she doesn't know for sure that you do not know anything. I have brought news from this country, and the country was called Saba, which is being ruled over by a woman who has a complete domination of her kingdom. So that woman who is the queen have complete control over her kingdom. And her throne is exceptionally large and worth seeing. Said here, she has a throne that she sits on is so big, so large, and it's worth seeing. But the only unfortunate thing prevailing there is that the ruler as well as the subjects worship the sun. Oh, they're worshipping the sun as their Lord and they lie in prostration before it. And they are so much ignorant that they have forsaken the Lords of the worlds, the Almighty Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has created each and everything. So they have forgotten and they are worshipping a sun. That was the sad part. So when Prophet Solomon heard this, he said to Hudhud, to the bird, we will make inquiries about your statement. He said, okay, we're going to check on your statements so that it is proved whether you are speaking the truth or telling a lie. Now take this letter of mine and deliver it to them and find out their reaction. So it said to the bird, as you can see in the picture, the bird, Hudhud, Hoopoe, is actually taking the letter and delivering it to Queen of Saba. And Prophet Solomon wanted to know if it is a lie or not. So the hoopoe took the letter and delivered it to the Queen of Saba. The queen glanced over to her ministers and said, no doubt we have been delivered a very auspicious and sacred message from Prophet Solomon. It says, in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, do not rebel against me. Embrace Islam and come to me as true Muslims. She said, tell me about your opinions. Now she's asking to her ministers, okay? Can you tell me about can you tell me about your reason for this? Okay. This is the letter we have received. Her ministers and courtiers replied. So courtiers, people who are present in that court of the king or the ruler. They say we have enough power and strength, and in the battlefield we are bold and courageous too. But still, it rests with you to take whatever action you determine, as we will abide by your commands. So they were telling the queen that we have enough power, we can destroy anyone, and we are also brave. That means we won't run away and run to a mountain or anywhere far from there. Okay. The queen of Saba gathered from their talk that they were ready to fight. So what did she tell us? Okay, they're ready to fight. They want to fight. And she did not like this. She made them understand. And what did she did? Made them understand that until a certain thing was settled by mutual understanding, it was not wise to resort to force, fighting, battle. When you can talk and communicate and resolve a thing, there is no need to fight or force someone. Because whenever a king conquers a certain country, any king, Genghis Khan, the Mughals, the British Empire that came, wherever it we want to talk about, his men, when they come to that country, their men after the war, they will plunder. What do you mean? They will just flood and break everything and bring about a drastic change in the life of the inhabitants. So you don't know there are thousands of people fighting and they will just do these bad things to the people who are actually living in that land. And the respectable members of the society are put to disgrace. Therefore, she was sending some gifts. Now, what she said, I've got another plan. I would like to send some gifts and presents to Prophet Suleiman so as to find out the method of dealing of the Prophet. She said, oh, okay, I'm going to send some presents and I'm going to see how the Prophet responds or deals and his reaction. So, thus, the queen sent home precious presents through the wise men of her court. She picked the wise man from her court and said, okay, go on, take these presents to Prophet Suleiman. Since Prophet Solomon had already known it, he ordered, so he know they will be coming, they will be present, and he had the wahi. So he ordered the jinns and the people under his command to build a magnificent palace so as to accommodate the emissaries of the queen Bilqis, the queen of Sabas, the people from her courtiers that are coming, so that they can accommodate and welcome them. He asked them to build a brand new palace. Okay. So when the representatives, as the image is depicting, they're arriving in the kingdom of Prophet Solomon, they were amazed to see beautiful buildings and the magnificent palace. And when they came there and they saw, and they were thinking, remember what they were saying, oh, we can fight and we are strong. And they were feeling small in presenting that gifts. When they saw that huge palace, they were feeling, oh, look, our presence would feel very small. So Prophet Solomon, he welcomed them with an open arm and inquired about the reason of their visit. He said, okay, wow, what brings you here? As well as about the reply to his letter sent to the Queen of Saba. So she said, okay, what about the letter that I sent it? What's the reply? So they presented the gifts by the queen to Prophet Solomon, but he paid no importance whatsoever to them and said, take these presents back to your queen, because I have been endowed with such innumerable bounties from Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala as are possessed by none. What I have right now, what I have been given by Allah, no one has it. I don't need these presents, take them. I cannot give up my mission of prophethood for the sake of these petty gifts. I can't just leave prophethood and what Allah has asked me to do just because of some small gifts, petty gifts. So you people should now return to your country. And he said, I am sending an army towards the people of Sabah who have no stamina to fight against it. And they've already seen the army. The army included the jinns and the birds, the animals, and so many people. I will then put them to blush and expel them from their land, said Prophet Solomon. He said, they will be ashamed and I will expel them. of the land. I will send them out once my army comes. So Queen Bilqis' men returned to her and narrated the whole matter to her. The queen pondered over a little, so she thought and said, "It is better for us to submit ourselves before Prophet Solomon sooner than later and accept his invitation to embrace Islam." However, the queen, along with the dignified people of her tribe, set out for the kingdom of Prophet Solomon. So she said this, that we will accept Islam, and she said, okay, she picked some dignified people and she started on a journey towards the kingdom of Prophet Solomon. But before the queen could reach his kingdom, Prophet Solomon said to his distinguished people, including the jinns, he said, "Who amongst you is capable of bringing to me the throne of Queen Bilqis before she herself reaches here?" Now, her kingdom is not the next door house, it was far, far away. And what is he saying? Before she reaches my kingdom, who among you from the jinn and the people who can go and bring the throne of Queen Bilqis before she reaches here? So one of the jinns, he stood and he said, "I have the power to do so before you disperse the meeting," which means when the kings used to get up, that means the meeting was dispersed. So he said, when before you stand, I can bring it before you stand. I have that much power. But one man, he whose name was, as the stories narrate, his name was Asif ibn Bilqriya. He stood up and he was a special man, because he was endowed with some divine knowledge, some knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, "I can do so even in the twinkle of an eye." So before the twinkling of an eye, before you close your eye and open it, it will be here. Now think about it. Even if I close my eye and open, you can't even bring a cup of water if you're standing 1 meter away from me to here, let alone a heavy throne from so far away. How could he just bring it like in a flick of an eye? A blink, just a blink of an eye, and the throne is there. We have to think about these things. So that means there are special powers available, and Allah gives them to His special people. And this guy, Asif ibn Bilqriya, was not a prophet, but he believed in Allah, and surely he was doing something right that he had this knowledge. So the throne of Bilqis, when Prophet Solomon raised his eye, he blinked, opened, closed, opened his eyes, and behold, the throne was lying before him, and said, "This is one of the benevolence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is putting us on a trial whether or not we remain grateful to Him. If anyone thanks the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His bounties, he is doing favor to himself. And the one who is ungrateful to Allah makes no difference to him, as He is above all such considerations." What a great message for us. So whatever we have to thank Allah for Him. Not the things that we are wishing for, we get it. And whoever doesn't do it, he is ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it doesn't make any difference. If we are grateful to Allah, then Allah will become more bigger. Allah, no, 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 no. Or something will happen if we don't do it, nothing will happen to Allah. If we are making a loss for our own self by not worshipping one true Lord of the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Prophet Solomon, what did he do then? He ordered the throne to be altered so as to find out whether the queen could recognize or not. He said, okay, all right, just change the throne. And I want to see if the queen of Saba, when she reaches here, along with her companions, would she be able to recognize her own throne? So when the queen of Saba, which is Queen Bilqis, when she arrived with her companions before Prophet Solomon, he asked her, "Is your throne like this?" He pointed, "Is your throne like this?" Bilqis looked at it, the throne, with a surprise and said, "This seems to be the same one, but I wonder as to how it came over here." Now she's thinking, it's so heavy and I left early, it was there. How did it even came before me and before my arrival? So before and also before the arrival of Queen Saba, Prophet Suleiman had ordered a palace of prismatic glass to be built. A palace that was just built with glass. When Queen Bilqis arrived, Prophet Suleiman took her towards that palace. When the queen entered the palace, now when she was walking on the palace was built on a flowing stream of water. And what she did, which she didn't realize it is glass underneath her foot, she put her garments up to save it from getting wet from the water. Actually, that was the palace was made of prismatic glass and the floor was also of glass. So the prismatic glass, she thought the floor was overflown with water. Now she's thinking, oh, I'm walking on the water, the water is coming in. Actually, the water was underneath the glass and she was walking on a glass floor. So Prophet Solomon said to her, how can there be water on the floor of the palace? So this is the palace. How can there be floor on the water of the palace? It is all grass and prism. It was then that Queen Bilqis realized her mistake and said, oh my lord, I have been cruel and unjust to myself. I have been worshipping lords other than Allah, the Lord of the worlds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have now embraced your religion at the hands of Prophet Suleiman and I commit myself to worship you alone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she declared that on I am at the hands of Prophet Suleiman, I am accepting and committing to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, remember that the palace was made of glass. So the passing away of Prophet Suleiman is also a very interesting story. Something that reminds us that all of us have to one day die and return to our Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the day of the judgment, we all shall be put to whatever we did in this world. And we will be judged. So Prophet Suleiman, he ruled over the people with justice for a long time. He was a just king, just ruler. People were leading a life of happiness and prosperity up to the last days of Prophet Suleiman. One day when Prophet Suleiman, he was in his prismatic, that glass palace, and he was leaning on his staff. You can see, I've created an image where Prophet Suleiman is holding staff and he was busy looking over his splendid buildings and beautiful. So as he's looking at the mountains, the spectacle buildings, and what did he saw? He saw a stranger coming towards him. He asked him, "Who are you, and why have you come here without my permission?" He replied, "I am that one who needs no permission to enter houses and palaces. I am the angel of death, and I have come to take the soul out of your body." So, when Prophet Suleiman realized that the stranger had come to perform a duty with unfaltering courage, he got much frightened. He asked the angel, "Can you give me some time so as to enable me to complete my work?" But the angel of death, he spared no moment and in a flash detached its soul from the body. And the lifeless body of Prophet Suleiman stood leaning for long on his staff. So, as the body was holding the staff, it kept on holding in its place. And all the people that were working outside, they know that Prophet Suleiman come to the side of the window and he watches them working. So everyone was just busy working for a long time because they saw, oh, he's watching, he's not even moving, he's looking at us. And after all that, some time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Almighty Allah, he sended white ants. What are white ants? Which we call them termites, which eat wood. So which started eating the staff from inside. So the staff was made of wood. They started eating it from inside. When the Prophet Suleiman's body, when the staff was eaten, broken, his body fell down from the support of his staff. And then the people realized that he had long passed away. So he was not standing there without moving for such a long time. He had actually passed away. So this is how Prophet Suleiman passed away. So this is the end of today's session. And today's session, that is the end of today's session. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala